Johnny Carson's most hated guests, the unforgettable tension behind the laughter. Behind the laughs and legendary moments of The Tonight Show lay tensions, conflicts, and personal feuds that shaped late-night television history. Today, we're diving deep into Johnny Carson's most challenging guest relationships that created unforgettable television moments. 1. Bob Hope. Despite being two titans of comedy, Johnny Carson and Bob Hope's professional relationship was notably strained. Carson, celebrated for his spontaneous interviewing style and natural charm, found himself increasingly frustrated with Hope's appearances on The Tonight Show. The core issue? Hope's rigid, pre-scripted approach to comedy that directly conflicted with Carson's preference for organic conversation. By the time Hope became a regular guest, he relied heavily on prepared material and cue cards, transforming what should have been natural conversations into mechanical performances. His team would meticulously prepare topic lists and pre-written jokes, essentially reducing Carson's role to that of a setup man rather than an interviewer. This formulaic approach made Carson feel more like a prop in Hope's promotional machine than a host. 2. Joan Rivers. The relationship between Johnny Carson and Joan Rivers represents one of television's most dramatic falls from grace. Their story began in 1965, when Carson gave Rivers her first major television break, recognizing her sharp wit and bold humor. She quickly became not just a regular guest, but a trusted substitute host, leading many to speculate she might eventually succeed Carson. However, their professional friendship imploded in 1986 when Rivers accepted her own competing late-night show on Fox without personally informing Carson. For him, this wasn't just a career move, it was an unforgivable betrayal. Despite Rivers' attempts to explain and reconcile, Carson never spoke to her again, permanently banning her from The Tonight Show. The incident highlighted Carson's deep sense of loyalty and how seriously he took personal relationships in the entertainment industry. Carson's decision to ban Rivers from The Tonight Show became one of television's longest-running feuds. The ban remained firmly in place for nearly 3 decades, transcending even Carson's retirement. His successor, Jay Leno, honored Carson's wishes by maintaining the ban out of respect for his mentor. It wasn't until 2014, when Jimmy Fallon took the reins, that Rivers finally returned to The Tonight Show stage. 3. Wayne Newton. The clash between Johnny Carson and Wayne Newton exemplifies how comedy can cross the line from playful banter to genuine animosity. Carson's trademark wit often targeted Newton's flamboyant persona, taking aim at the singer's polished appearance, high-pitched voice, and theatrical Vegas showmanship. While most celebrities took Carson's ribbing in stride, Newton saw these jabs as direct attacks on his masculinity and professional reputation. The situation reached its boiling point in a confrontation that would forever change their dynamic. Newton, wielding considerable influence in Las Vegas, stormed into Carson's office for a face-to-face showdown. The encounter reportedly left Carson, usually the epitome of cool confidence, visibly shaken. While the exact words exchanged remain disputed, Newton's message was crystal clear: stop the jokes or face consequences. 4. Mr. Rogers. The awkward dynamic between Johnny Carson and Fred Rogers perfectly illustrates the clash between entertainment styles. Carson's quick-witted, sometimes biting humor found itself neutralized by Rogers' unwavering sincerity and gentle demeanor. The children's television icon's appearances on The Tonight Show created a fascinating tension, not from conflict, but from the sheer impossibility of meshing their contrasting approaches. Rogers' mission of spreading kindness and educational values left little room for Carson's signature comedic style. The host, accustomed to playful banter and sharp comebacks, found himself unable to navigate Rogers' earnest responses and thoughtful pauses. These interactions, while respectful, highlighted how sometimes even television's greatest host could find himself out of his element when faced with genuine, unshakable authenticity. 5. Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston presented Carson with a different kind of challenge, one of gravitas versus levity. The legendary actor, known for epic roles in Ben-Hur and The Ten Commandments, brought an intensity to The Tonight Show that often felt at odds with its lighthearted atmosphere. Heston's formal demeanor and tendency for lengthy, serious monologues about politics, films, or his role as NRA president created a stark contrast to Carson's quick-witted style. Where Carson thrived on rapid-fire exchanges and spontaneous humor, Heston delivered measured, sometimes self-important responses that could drain the energy from the room. The political dimension added another layer of complexity. While Carson masterfully walked the line between political parties, often poking fun at both sides, Heston's staunch conservative views and serious delivery made him a challenging target for Carson's usual political humor. These interviews often became more like formal conversations than the entertaining exchanges The Tonight Show was famous for. 6. Harry Belafonte. Harry Belafonte represented yet another unique challenge for Carson. The celebrated singer and civil rights activist brought an intensity to his appearances that often steered conversations away from light entertainment and into deeper, more serious territory. While Carson respected Belafonte's talents and activism, these appearances frequently tested the delicate balance between entertainment and social commentary that The Tonight Show strived to maintain. Harry Belafonte's appearances on The Tonight Show highlighted a fascinating clash between entertainment and social consciousness. While Carson's show thrived on lighthearted banter and comedic relief, Belafonte consistently steered conversations toward weightier topics like racial justice, civil rights, and global humanitarian issues. This created a unique tension that tested Carson's legendary hosting abilities. The challenge wasn't in Belafonte's demeanor. He was articulate, charismatic, and deeply respected in the entertainment industry. Rather, it was his unwavering commitment to using his platform for activism that sometimes disrupted the show's carefully crafted atmosphere of escapist entertainment. Carson, a master of navigating celebrity interviews with charm and wit, found himself walking a delicate line between respecting Belafonte's important messages and maintaining his show's signature lighthearted tone. 7. Chevy Chase. Among Carson's most challenging guests was Saturday Night Live alum Chevy Chase, whose appearances often created palpable tension on set. Chase's rapid rise to fame in the mid-1970s came with a reputation for arrogance that directly conflicted with Carson's understated authority and warm hosting style. Unlike other comedians who eagerly played along with Carson's wit, Chase projected an air of superiority that disrupted the show's natural rhythm. His brand of humor, heavy on sarcasm and occasionally mean-spirited, created awkward moments that even Carson's legendary charm couldn't smooth over. The underlying tension was further amplified by industry whispers about Chase's ambitions to become the next king of late-night television. The underlying tension was further amplified by industry whispers about Chase's ambitions to become the next king of late-night television, positioning him as a potential rival rather than just another guest. 8. Frank Sinatra. The dynamic between Carson and Frank Sinatra exemplified what happens when two entertainment titans share the stage. While Sinatra's appearances guaranteed ratings gold, his larger-than-life personality and tendency to dominate conversations created unique challenges. Old Blue Eyes brought an unmistakable star power to The Tonight Show, but his commanding presence sometimes overshadowed Carson's carefully crafted hosting style, leading to subtle power struggles that viewers could sense beneath the surface of their seemingly cordial interactions. Frank Sinatra's appearances on The Tonight Show perfectly exemplified the clash of entertainment titans. While his star power was undeniable, Sinatra's occasional arrogance and dismissive attitude created an underlying tension that even Carson's masterful hosting skills couldn't fully disguise. The chairman of the board was notorious for playing by his own rules, often disregarding the show's established format and Carson's authority as host. One of the most infamous incidents occurred when Sinatra brazenly interrupted Carson's opening monologue, walking on stage unannounced. Though Carson handled the situation with his characteristic grace and quick wit, the message was clear. Sinatra wanted to demonstrate his dominance over the proceedings. Such power moves created visible friction, as Carson was known for valuing control and smooth production above all else. Behind the scenes, Sinatra's demands added another layer of complexity. His extensive entourage, often described as a traveling circus, would descend upon the studio, disrupting the show's carefully maintained atmosphere. The legendary singer's requirements and impromptu schedule changes tested the patience of both the production team and Carson himself. 9. Bette Midler. The relationship between Carson and Bette Midler presents a fascinating study in contrasts. While their on-screen chemistry produced some of The Tonight Show's most memorable moments, including Midler's legendary final appearance in 1992, their off-camera dynamic told a different story. The divine Miss M's larger-than-life personality and uncontainable energy often overwhelmed Carson's more measured, controlled style. Midler herself has spoken candidly about Carson's sometimes cold demeanor backstage, suggesting that her strong, independent presence might have unsettled him. In an era when female guests were expected to be more subdued, Midler's bold, assertive nature challenged the traditional late-night paradigm. Despite any personal reservations, Carson recognized her extraordinary talent, and their final appearance together, where Midler reduced Carson to tears with an emotional musical tribute, remains one of late-night television's most touching moments. While Bette Midler's appearances created unforgettable television moments, particularly during Carson's final show in 1992, their relationship was more complex than it appeared. Midler's explosive energy and commanding stage presence often dominated the show's atmosphere, creating a subtle tension with Carson's more controlled hosting style. Their dynamic perfectly illustrated the clash between raw theatrical energy and Carson's preference for measured television entertainment. While he deeply respected her immense talent, Midler's tendency to take control of any room she entered, including his studio, occasionally left Carson feeling like a spectator on his own show. 10. George Carlin. The evolution of Carson's relationship with George Carlin reflects the broader cultural shifts of the era. While Carson initially welcomed Carlin during his clean-cut early years, their professional relationship cooled as Carlin's comedy became increasingly countercultural and provocative. Carson's show thrived on maintaining a delicate balance, entertaining while never alienating middle America. As Carlin's material dove deeper into politics, religion, and social commentary, the gap between their comedic philosophies widened. Carson's preference for polished, broadly appealing humor stood in stark contrast to Carlin's raw, challenging style. 11. Shelley Winters. Oscar winner Shelley Winters proved to be one of Carson's most challenging guests, known for creating moments that tested even his legendary composure. Her appearances became notorious for their unpredictability, often derailing Carson's carefully planned segments with impromptu tangents and confrontational behavior. Winters' penchant for interrupting, challenging questions, and commandeering conversations directly conflicted with Carson's precise hosting style. The tension reached its peak during an infamous incident where she unexpectedly removed her shoe and handed it to Carson mid-interview, leaving him visibly frustrated. These unscripted moments, while memorable, exemplified why certain guests found themselves appearing less frequently on The Tonight Show, despite their star power. Shelley Winters brought a whirlwind of chaos to The Tonight Show that tested Carson's legendary composure. Her unpredictable antics, while entertaining to some viewers, often clashed with Carson's polished professionalism. The Oscar-winning actress's larger-than-life personality proved exhausting for Carson to manage during live broadcasts, creating a fascinating tension between host and guest. Carson's Midwestern reserve and sharp wit found itself at odds with Winters' flamboyant, outspoken nature. While he masterfully sparred with most guests in good fun, Winters' boldness frequently crossed boundaries that made him visibly uncomfortable. Their interactions often felt more combative than playful, leading to Carson's reluctance to feature her regularly. 12. Tom Snyder. Tom Snyder, host of Tomorrow, represented another complex challenge for Carson. Despite their shared profession in late-night television, their contrasting styles created palpable tension whenever Snyder appeared on The Tonight Show. Snyder's intense, sometimes confrontational interviewing style directly opposed Carson's relaxed, witty approach. The primary friction stemmed from Snyder's tendency to dominate conversations, often speaking at length about himself or his own show. This behavior disrupted Carson's preferred interview rhythm, where he typically guided the conversation with subtle mastery. Additionally, their contrasting temperaments, Carson's famous reserve versus Snyder's fiery opinions, created an awkward dynamic that viewers couldn't help but notice. 13. Zsa Zsa Gabor. The Hungarian-born socialite Zsa Zsa Gabor brought a unique challenge to The Tonight Show, with her overwhelming presence and non-stop chatter. Her appearances often turned into one-woman shows about her wealth, relationships, and luxurious lifestyle, leaving Carson struggling to maintain his role as host. While Gabor's quick wit and larger-than-life persona entertained audiences, her tendency to monopolize conversations left little room for Carson's trademark humor. The clash between her extravagant storytelling and Carson's more measured approach created memorable television moments, though not always for the right reasons. Their interactions perfectly illustrated the delicate balance Carson strived to maintain between entertainment and control. While Zsa Zsa Gabor's appearances on The Tonight Show always guaranteed entertainment, they often tested Carson's legendary patience. The Hungarian-born actress and socialite's self-centered approach to interviews frequently derailed the show's carefully planned flow, creating a fascinating clash between Hollywood glamour and Carson's measured professionalism. Carson, ever the consummate host, would attempt to guide conversations and play along with subtle humor. However, Gabor's flamboyant personality and tendency to dominate discussions made this nearly impossible. Her elaborate stories about her luxurious lifestyle, multiple marriages, and social connections often turned segments into one-woman shows, leaving Carson struggling to maintain his role as host. The tension became particularly evident when Carson attempted his trademark gentle ribbing. While most guests appreciated his wit and played along, Gabor's inability or unwillingness to laugh at herself created awkward moments that fell flat. Her preference for controlling the narrative often resulted in her talking over Carson's attempts at humor, creating a visible disconnect between host and guest. 14. Norman Mailer. Norman Mailer's appearances on The Tonight Show exemplified the clash between intellectual debate and entertainment television. The controversial author's combative demeanor and tendency to transform lighthearted interviews into heated discussions made him one of Carson's least favorite guests. Mailer's argumentative nature directly opposed Carson's preference for entertaining banter. While Carson mastered the art of mixing humor with interesting conversation, Mailer seemed determined to turn every appearance into an intellectual sparring match. His tendency to dominate discussions with lengthy monologues about politics, culture, and literature disrupted the show's carefully maintained balance between entertainment and substance. The author's unpredictability and often polarizing views presented another challenge. Carson, who expertly crafted his show to appeal to a broad audience, found himself constantly navigating around Mailer's controversial statements and confrontational style. The resulting tension created memorable television moments, though perhaps not the kind Carson preferred for his show. 15. Tony Curtis. Tony Curtis's appearances on The Tonight Show perfectly exemplified the clash between Hollywood glamour and controlled television hosting. While undeniably charismatic, Curtis's tendency to dominate conversations created a persistent source of friction with Carson. The veteran actor would frequently launch into lengthy, self-promoting monologues about his career, personal life, and Hollywood connections, leaving little room for Carson's trademark wit and timing. Carson, who mastered the art of balanced conversation, found himself repeatedly frustrated by Curtis's spotlight-stealing tendencies. The actor's larger-than-life persona and theatrical flair often overshadowed the natural rhythm of the show, creating moments that felt more like a one-man performance than an interview. Curtis's unpredictability and penchant for veering off topic tested even Carson's legendary ability to guide conversation smoothly. 16. Don Rickles. The relationship between Carson and Don Rickles represented a unique dynamic in television history. While Rickles was undoubtedly a comedy legend and audience favorite, his appearances often walked a fine line between controlled chaos and pure mayhem. The Merchant of Venom brought an unpredictable energy that both delighted and occasionally frustrated Carson. Rickles' rapid-fire insult comedy style and complete disregard for traditional talk show etiquette created memorable moments that tested Carson's composure, whether leaping from his chair to interact with the audience, mercilessly roasting crew members, or breaking props on set. Rickles transformed every appearance into an event. The infamous cigarette box incident, where Rickles damaged Carson's personal property while guest hosting, led to a legendary confrontation that perfectly captured their complex dynamic. Despite the occasional tension, their relationship was built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Carson understood that Rickles' chaos, while challenging to manage, produced some of the show's most unforgettable moments. Their interactions demonstrated how sometimes the best television comes from embracing the unexpected, even when it means surrendering some control to the beautiful chaos that was Don Rickles. While Don Rickles consistently delivered some of the most memorable moments on The Tonight Show, his relationship with Carson was delightfully complex. The Merchant of Venom brought an electric unpredictability that could simultaneously energize and exasperate the legendary host, creating a fascinating dynamic that viewers couldn't resist. Rickles' rapid-fire insult comedy and complete disregard for talk show conventions often pushed Carson out of his comfort zone. Unlike other guests who followed the standard interview format, Rickles would frequently hijack segments, turning planned conversations into impromptu comedy routines. He'd bounce between targeting Carson, Ed McMahon, the band, and even unsuspecting audience members, all while Carson attempted to maintain some semblance of control. The tension reached legendary status during the infamous cigarette box incident, where Rickles, while guest hosting, accidentally damaged Carson's personal cigarette box. The following night, Carson confronted Rickles on air, creating one of television's most memorable moments. The exchange perfectly captured their unique relationship, a mixture of genuine friendship and professional rivalry. Despite the occasional chaos, Carson recognized that Rickles' unpredictability was television gold. Their chemistry was undeniable, even when Rickles would overshadow Carson on his own show. The host's attempts to rein in Rickles' boundless energy often resulted in even more hilarious moments, as the comedian would double down on his antics, leaving Carson both amused and slightly frustrated. These challenging relationships shaped not just The Tonight Show, but television history itself. While some guests tested Carson's patience, others pushed him to new heights, creating unforgettable moments that continue to influence late-night television today.